The Jim Master Show coming to you from New York. It's a pleasure to have you here, everybody. We also invite you to comment during the show, say hello, and let us know you're there. And guess what? We're going to welcome our special guest right now. There is Gary, also coming to us from New York. Gary, welcome to the Jim Master Show, my friend.
Hi, Jim. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is all mine. It's so good to have you here. And I've been following your career. Louisiana boy makes good, as I was saying when we were chatting earlier before we, go on the show with the actual broadcast. We have a little bit of a sort of a pre-chat, and we give our guests, the royal treatment: champagne and truffles, lobster, cheese and crackers. Did you enjoy all of that in the green room?
It was everything I hoped it would be and more. I was just really pleasantly surprised when I walked in and saw the spread. Thank you for that.
We do what we can at the Jim Master Show. We're true professionals, my friend, just like you.
Well, thank you.
It's so cool to have you here. And again, like I said, a celebrated television, film, stage actor and producer and writer, and you've been doing so many incredible, cool things. But there's something that you're doing right now that is very exciting, and it involves, of course, Netflix. And in this case, what's cool about this is you are playing the head of the Secret Service in the upcoming season of The Night Agent. I know you're excited about it. We're excited about seeing it too. Tell us about it, the premise, and how did this opportunity come your way to play that coveted role? And there, of course, there you go, The Night Agent. Look for it on Netflix. And of course, you just came in from, the showing and all the cool stuff that's happening around it. Congratulations on it. And how did this opportunity come your way? Congratulations, my friend.
Yeah, thanks so much. It came across as an audition, and I'd actually auditioned for a couple of different roles in season 2. So I guess I was on their radar a little bit. And then when this one came through and they were shooting season 3, it just, I felt like I really clicked with the material, with the scenes I got to read for them. And it really felt like something that the character's name is Trent Patterson. He felt like someone that I could really slip into and play well. And I'm glad that they felt the same way. I think it was probably less than a day within my audition. And when I found out I was in the mix for the role, and then from there things moved pretty quickly. And then I don't know, 2 weeks later or so, I was getting fitted for my Secret Service gear and showing up on set. So it was a pretty quick process. And it was a lot of fun.
Tell us about the role and how cool it is to, again, play the head of the Secret Service in The Night Agent. Tell us about the show for anybody who isn't familiar with it, and then your role.
Sure. Yeah. So the first 2 seasons, it's established that the character of Peter Sutherland, which is played by Gabriel Basso, is a low-level FBI agent who's tasked with sitting in the basement of the White House, and he's supposed to answer this particular phone if it rings. And then it does. And that pulls him into a life that he didn't anticipate or expect. And he becomes what's called a night agent for a top secret division of the FBI called Night Action. So the first season follows him with his first sort of case. Second season is another set of circumstances he must come through. And then in the third season, which we're about to start, he's pulled into some more action. And my character, Trent Patterson, he's the head of the White House Secret Service detail. So there are some things that unfold in the White House and that my character gets pulled into alongside the character of Chelsea Arrington. She was a character. She's also a Secret Service agent. She was a character in the first season. She came in right at the tail end of season 2 as a teaser that she would actually be back full time in season 3. So my character is her boss. And without giving anything away, there's just some things happening around the White House that we need to give our attention. How's that for teasing it?
What a teaser that is, huh? and relevant and topical, and it's going to be very people are going to really want more and more, which I think is fantastic. Now, you've been doing this for a long time, my friend. Kudos to you and all of the accolades and all the wonderful projects. Known, of course, for appearances on some other fantastic, well-known, coveted shows like Law and Order and Organized Crime and Daredevil and The Blacklist. And you also got involved with, and we've had several actors and actresses from this world, and they say this world, if you survive this world, you can do anything. And that's the soap opera, daytime drama world. And you booked many guest spots on daytime soaps, including a recurring run on All My Children. So for all the soap fans out there, yes, here he is. Tell us about that role. And did you enjoy being a part of the soap world? I know the thick scripts and all the shots and several episodes they tape a day, which is amazing. It's quite a hectic schedule, huh?
Yeah, it was. It was so much fun to be a part of that. At the time that I moved to New York in 2001 from Louisiana, and there were 4 soap operas still filming in New York at that time. Unfortunately, there are no more soap operas in New York, but I got to be a part of Guiding Light, One Life to Live, As the World Turns, and the one, like you said, the one I worked on the most was All My Children. And I'm sensing a theme here because the character I played there, for fans of All My Children who remember, Adam Chandler, who was a big character on that show, I was I was the head of security for Adam Chandler around the Chandler Mansion. So I'm sensing a theme in my career. But it was a lot of work. It was a great bridge between theater work, because you're working sort of like in a stage where you have 3 cameras, and it's totally different than what we do on The Night Agent, which is a 1-camera show. But so it's staged a bit like a play, but you also are having to learn how to work for the camera. So that was actually a great learning experience for me. And you mentioned the amount of dialogue you had to learn in a day. It really was a great training ground. And I'm really lucky and grateful that I got to be a part of such a legacy before it left New York.
It's amazing because, half your life in Louisiana and half your life in New York. So you know where to get a good slice of pizza, hot dog and bagel, and also where to get some good gumbo, huh?
Yeah, I do. I do. I do. I've amassed a long list of my favorite cuisines, and I'm grateful that I get to experience both of those on a regular basis.
Do you cook at all? Do you like to cook in your off time, or are you making reservations often?
Listen, I would call myself a functional cook. I can fend for myself. I have a few things that I can make. I wouldn't claim to be the expert in the kitchen. My brother actually loves cooking, and he owns a restaurant back home in Louisiana. So I tip my hat to him. If there's anything that happens in front of a camera on a stage, that's my domain, but the kitchen is his.
We have one of our viewers, we call them Levity viewers, Love and Levity, when we started the show during the early part of the pandemic. And her name is Mona. So Mona, if you're watching, we send you love. She's in Louisiana, in New Orleans. And she sends me these incredible spices and rubs from Louisiana. She's tied in with a restaurant and all. And these are the real deal. And we're putting them on salmon and steaks and in salads and all kinds of things. The spices and the rubs and everything down in New Orleans area in Louisiana are really good. So she's one of our viewers, and every once in a while we'll get a box here with love from Mona in Louisiana, and it'll be filled with all of those. She'll even check in and say, "Hey Jim, have you rubbed out? Have you rubbed out?" I like that. No, I don't. He might be closer to doing that than me. He rubs it. The spices and the rubs, she'll say something like, "Hey, have you run out of them?" And well, we're getting a little low. Box coming, new shipment coming.
Mona is a good friend to have.
Mona is a good friend and a good, faithful, lovely viewer on the Jim Master Show. Speaking of wonderful Louisiana, we have family there as well. Tell us about growing up there and your early inspirational journey that pointed you in the direction of the arts and acting and performing. Were you in plays in school? Were you always the active kid who wanted to get into this world, and was like New York and LA on your bucket list? What was that like for you growing up down south?
Yeah, as a young kid, I was very, I loved good stories. And whether that was in a book or on a television show or movies. And I remember this is when I was a kid, I remember, and I think they still air it now, the Frosty the Snowman animated special that they would air
Rankin Bass
every year.
Productions,
Yeah.
yes,
I mean, it's
Frosty
like,
and Rudolph and all of
yeah.
them.
Well, Frosty every year, and they only aired it once a year. This was before we had
And
streaming.
Jimmy
And
Durante, I think, was
Jimmy
who
Durante,
told
yeah,
the story,
the
right?
smaller, yeah.
Mhm.
And I would get so sad, and I would just burst into tears every year when Frosty would melt at the end. And
Are you kidding me?
no, I
In
would
the
cry every year.
greenhouse, in the
And my
greenhouse,
mom, my
because
mom
the
would
music
say,
would come on, which
"Yeah,
was do 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 do, and all of a sudden the little girl's crying over the melted puddle, and Frosty, who she was fell in love with as a friend, almost it was like he passed away. And if you
yeah,
were a little kid and you saw a snowman just melt and disappear, I you'll laugh. I plug right in. That is a standout for me too when that was on and it would hit. And I got to be honest, there are times when it's been on and it'll bring me right back to childhood. I'm like, God, the way the music just comes in and her crying, and then he starts singing
yeah,
Durante,
mhm,
Frosty the Snowman.
yeah,
That
exactly."
was, yeah.
Yeah.
So it
Well,
all began with a puddle of snow.
exactly, because somewhere along the way, it clicked in me that stories, even when you know how they're gonna I knew that stories had a power to make people feel things. They made me feel things, and I think that was the beginning of me wanting to figure out how to do that and be a part of something so powerful. So, yeah, at a very early age, I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't have anyone in my family that had left and moved to New York, and I don't know why New York was where I landed in my mind, but, I remember being maybe 8 years old and telling my grandmother that I would say, "Do you know what I wanna do when I grow up?" And she said, "Yeah, you wanna be an actor and you wanna live in New York." And I guess I had been talking about it. And, so when I was 12, I happened to find an acting teacher who, she was from my hometown, and, I grew up in the Alexandria, Pineville area for Mona and anyone else in Louisiana who knows the state. And this actress had moved away and pursued her dreams and decided she wanted to come back home to start a family. Her name is Lane Miller. We're still friends today. And she started a little acting studio. And I was so hungry to learn how to become an actor, how to get from point A to point B. And I found her ad in the newspaper and I started studying with her when I was 12. And it just from there I sought every opportunity I could find to work and to learn. And I spent some time in New Orleans for a few years before I moved to New York. Those were my sort of big city training wheels. And then I moved to New York in 2001. And it's just, I've just saw my entire life. I've kind of quit wondering why I want to be an actor so much. I just know that it's my happy place. It's where I feel most at home. Like when I was on the set of The Night Angel, there's something about the camaraderie of being on a set with the crew and telling a story that will hopefully move people or excite people or scare people or thrill people. Just being a part of that is a tremendous privilege, and I'm just so grateful that I have been able to do this with my life. It makes the little 8-year-old me proud, I think.
It makes the right, exactly. And again, all kinds of different roles. And these are some great shots. I mean, some really cool things here. Um, what's really cool about some of this is what you said earlier about how you asked your grandmother if she knew what you were going to become and do. Usually the grandmother would be asking the 8-year-old.
Yeah. Well, I think they had heard me talking about it so much. Like I think I brought it up every opportunity I could get. So she had heard it.
That's fantastic. So how did you take that passion, from there and then start to really pursue it? I know that you went in and got the training and really developed the expertise, but what I really love about your story is how you really were enamored by the magic of television shows and movies to the point where, like you said, they took you on an emotional roller coaster through these worlds far different from your own. And you were very eager to learn how to create that magic as well and be a part of it. So you taught yourself every trick imaginable, as I think I did too, with a
Mhm.
VHS camcorder. And I had a
Yeah.
Panasonic tape recorder with the microphone. I used to interview all the relatives. And
Yeah.
you did it long before YouTube tutorials were ever envisioned. And at 12, you began making solo trips to the local community theater.
Mhm.
And acting bug sort of bit you and spent most of your life studying, training, and working as a professional actor. Tell us about those early years, the VHS camcorder, and sort of trying to start this and create this world of your own.
Yeah. Like you said, back then, so I turned 50 last year. I say that to say that I was born in the 70s. I grew up in the 80s, teenager, late teens in the 90s. But we didn't even have, DVD extras, if anybody remembers those, where you could see little behind the scenes snippets of how things got made. So I was on a quest to kind of understand how it all came together. And I remember we got one of those big VHS camcorders, and I learned everything I could about that. I learned how to hook it up to the VCR on the TV and how to take what I've learned now is called crash edits. It's where you use two different VCR decks to create uh, a scene by editing
Right.
things
And that's
together.
cumbersome and takes a lot of
Yeah.
time and, play and record and stop and rewind. And I did
Yeah.
the same. I know what you
You
meant.
do, we have that in common.
Yeah. Oh, we used to edit 3/4 inch tape, which would take forever.
Yeah.
And, in the radio stations, the reel to reel tapes and edit and load them up and splicing and all of that. Now you just press and everything's
Right.
done.
And you do it on
Old.
your computer, and it's just like it's so um yeah, it's much easier, and I'm grateful we have the technology we have now. But I just really wanted to learn how it all worked. It just was all magic to me. And I remember when I had this all like the age of 12 was a pretty transformative period for me. I think it was around age 12 when I started taking those acting lessons, and I went to a community theater production, and they were doing Neil Simon's Brighton Beach Memoirs. And anybody who knows that show knows it's this house. It all takes place in this two-story house in Brooklyn, and it's a period piece. But I walked into this theater, and there was a house, a two-story house on stage, and and there was one wall missing, which so the audience could see in, and it felt like what I assumed a TV set would look like, a set for a television show. And I mean, I had to be a part of it. I had to be a part of it. And there was a notice in the back of the program for that show that they had auditions coming up. And that was all for the next play. And that was all the information they had. So I had my mom take me up there, and I marched in, and I said, I'm here to audition. And the person behind the counter, who is now a very good friend of mine, he said, well, we don't have any roles for children in this. And I was disappointed, but I wasn't deterred. And I kept looking for opportunities to act. So anytime anything came up in school, I was there. And I just looked for ways to fill in the gaps in my knowledge. And that's, my acting career, my love for acting has been this sort of, I think of it as sort of this rope around my waist that has pulled me through life. No matter what, I stay in touch with that because it's just such a part of me. And like I said earlier, I'm just so grateful that I'm still getting a chance to do it, and I'm still getting a chance to learn, and I'm still getting a chance to work with people that I admire. It's really a privilege.
I don't doubt truly. And when you have an opportunity to do that, and you're working with people sometimes again and again, and on different sets and different projects and productions, it's a really cool thing. It becomes like a like a family, like a community that runs deep, which I think is fantastic. I want to let folks know too that for you, the stage really is your first love, right? You are an active member of New York's theater community. You won Best One Man Drama, the award for the solo off Broadway performance in Mike Miller's Transfiguration. And you received a Best Actor nomination from Broadway World for portraying Eddie Carbone in Arthur Miller's A View from the Bridge. You've appeared in the New York premiere of Carol Carpenter's Sweet Spirit at Manhattan Theater Works, and originated the part of Mickey in The Love Junkies of Hell's Kitchen as well at Theater for the New City. Tell us about how, because a lot of times there's a lot of folks who do film, they do television, other kinds of work, but they always seem, if they started in theater, to come back to the theater as the true love for them.
Yeah, it's truly the foundation where I learned how to act. And, and I think there's so many reasons for that. One, you learn how to build the arc of a character. You learn how to tell the story from beginning to end every night, and you get a lot of reps in. You're rehearsing it, you're picking it apart in the rehearsal room, and then you're getting it on its feet, and then you're doing it every night, and it's a different show every night. You're learning every night. I don't mean you're changing the lines and things like that, but the experience is different if you're really living in the moment. And that I can't even imagine what my career would be like if I didn't have that foundation as an actor on the stage. And so whenever I'm away from it for too long, I start longing to get back there. I absolutely love working on television film. It's a whole different set of muscles that you flex. But I do think that the training that I received and the work I got to do, and just the quality of the plays that I've been fortunate enough to be in. You mentioned some of them. Eddie Carbone in A View from the Bridge is one of my absolute favorite roles that I've ever played. It's such a rich, layered character, and I hope I get a chance to play him again at some point. That's a dream of mine. But yeah, it's really foundational for me, and I think that might be why I was so drawn to New York, because we have so many opportunities for thrilling stage productions here. So I think I'm always keeping an eye out for that next stage role.
Exactly right, which is terrific. And again, that's great that you share that continued passion for theater work. Matter of fact, you even wrote the feature screenplay, Sev Sharp, a neo-noir story about a disgraced former journalist turned private investigator whose search for a missing young man uncovers a devastating family secret. Tell us about that, and congratulations. Do you like writing and writing screenplays? Is that another passion of yours as well, Gary?
It is another passion of mine, and it's something that's sort of developed in the past several years. I had this idea for Sev Sharp, which is the title character's name, Sev Sharp. And I was kicking it around and outlining it and thinking of scenes for a decade, but I didn't feel like I had the chops to write the screenplay yet. So I dove in on that topic and built up my confidence a bit, I think. And I gave myself a deadline last year to finish it. And I met my deadline, which was a confidence boost. And I'm really happy with it. So much of my career has been focused on building the acting side of things. And I think that it's a relatively recent discovery that I've made about myself that, I just like telling stories, and and from every angle. And so I'm excited to produce this film and see what it's like to work on that side of the camera with something that I created from the ground up, and a story that has been with me for so long, and to actually get it made, something I'm very excited about. So yeah.
Congratulations. When did you actually start that? How long you've been working on it?
The idea and sort of the bullet points and the brainstorming about it started coming into my head probably about 10 years ago.
Wow.
And it was really just like jotting down or typing on my phone. I would think of a scene, or I would, and I went back and looked at this document, and there's a lot that didn't make it into the screenplay. There's a lot that did. And it's sort of fascinating to see how long these ideas have just been sitting. So about 10 years ago, I started
Wow.
flirting with the idea.
Right.
And then last year, I really fade in, started with the first page and started typing it out. And it took some, and it went through several drafts, and I've locked down the script now, and so I'm ready to move on to the next phase of production with it.
Very, very cool. Do you already have an idea where you want to shoot everything? Is it East Coast, West Coast, somewhere else?
It's East Coast. The story takes place in New York. This is definitely not my story, but the character is from Louisiana, and he has family in Louisiana. So it's definitely, like I said, it's definitely not my story, but it's sort of the, how do I put it? It's sort of the funhouse version of my life in some ways. There's so much in my life that I'm grateful for.
Mhm.
When things could have gone one way, they went, a more positive way. So the character of Sev has not been so lucky. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And he has some things that he's wrestling with. So yeah, it takes place all in New York, and it's an East Coast show, but it definitely has some Louisiana roots, just like I do.
Now, as a member of the LGBT community, you came up really at a time when visibility could limit opportunities, especially for traditionally masculine roles. And you are very proud to be working in an industry that now values authenticity and diversity. That's very, very important. Tell us about the importance of that and why that's so near and dear to your heart, Gary.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking about that, because you're right. Coming up, like I said, 80s, 90s, moving to New York, early 2000s, it was a different landscape for actors, for anyone really. And, in these traditionally sort of macho type roles that I was getting cast in, detectives, police officers, security, FBI, CIA, I didn't feel that I could be my most authentic self, and be out. And I remember when I first started working on television shows and getting more high profile jobs here in New York, I was very conflicted, and I didn't know how to navigate that. And, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn to say that it definitely was sort of a thing in the entertainment industry. If you were a man, that you sort of present as heterosexual, present as straight, especially if you wanted to have some sort of diversity in your career. And I carried that around with me. And actually, talking about Sev Sharp, when I first started thinking about this story, it's one of those typical sort of macho kind of roles, and the character just happens to be gay. And it's not even so much that it happens to be gay; it's very integral to the story. So it's not an afterthought. It's not just something I've tacked onto this character. And I was writing this, or thinking about writing this for myself. I thought, I want to challenge the stereotypes that were prevalent, and show that this is something that can have a foot in both. This character has a foot in both worlds, and so that's where the idea for this screenplay started. And I think my own journey of self-acceptance was probably part of the reason why it took me 10 years to get this screenplay written. I think I had to reconcile a lot of things deep within myself before I could, and get to a level of self-acceptance, because it's really ultimately what it's about. It's about self-acceptance. And so, yes, now I was talking to a younger person just yesterday about this subject. And, it's just, audiences today are much more savvy, and there has been this move from being, the elusive movie stars, we really didn't know anything about their lives. And now it's about authenticity, and younger audiences and even older audiences are craving authentic people on their screens or on stage. And it's not a detriment to be your true self in public anymore. And also, social media has just opened up the world. Everybody knows everything about everybody. And I just made a decision not to curate my life to look a way that it wasn't. And then when I see people who have had such success, like Jonathan Bailey, who has just had a phenomenal run these past several years, going from the straight romantic heartthrob on Bridgerton, and then doing something like Fellow Travelers with Matt Bomer and just living his life out loud. That's very encouraging for me too. So I want to be a part of that world where a celebrity or person in the public eye does not hide who they are in some bid for acceptance. So yeah, this is a great time. This is a great time. I'm really proud of where we are today.
That's fantastic. That is really amazing. Living, your true self and sharing it with the world is important. It's also, freeing and not claustrophobic anymore, which is another amazing thing. And it also brings everybody together, which is another beautiful result of all of it, Gary. Which then opens up opportunities even for other roles and other perspectives as well. In addition to all the cool things we're talking about here, you're also an avid reader of biographies.
Yeah.
And you're a fitness enthusiast as well. Tell us about the biographies. What kinds of biographies do you like to sink your teeth into?
That's something that started with me very young as well. I remember, I'm sort of just generalizing this, but I remember it was probably around age 12 or so. Somewhere along the way, I picked up at the library a biography of Lucille Ball, and I read it, and it was fascinating. It was a pretty thick biography. I wish I could remember which one it was who wrote it, but and it was fascinating to see how someone got from where they started to where they ended up and where they lived in our consciousness or my consciousness. And I was hooked. I read a lot of celebrity and actor, more, I would just say, let's say actor, not generalize into celebrity, actor biographies and memoirs and autobiographies. I just finished Anthony Hopkins just like last week. And there's just, yeah. Have you read it? Did you read Anthony Hopkins?
Oh, that's unbelievable, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. What a journey.
That book is definitely not for the birds.
No, it's not. So yeah, I've just been, I think it, my life as an actor, I'm curious about people and, what the journey was like and hopes, fears, and dreams and disappointments. And that's just all fertile ground for me. So I think it's all of a piece, and that's where it comes from for me, I think.
You pull nuggets from each, but are there any that stand out that you plug into, any actors or others who you've read their story, their journey, and it's either similar to yours or you just plug into their personality, how they handled things, and you feel a deeper connection to that public figure as a result of reading their biography? Are there a few that stand out, names we'd recognize that you plug into, Gary?
Oh yeah, there are tons. And Sir Anthony Hopkins is the one that's top of mind right now because I just finished it, and I'm sure I could think of so many more. But I think there's something about the selection of these biographies when I pull them off the shelf and I decide I'm going to read this one now. It's answering something inside me that I don't even think I know what it is. But you talk about similarities, on the surface, very different. He's an entirely different generation. He grew up in World War II. He was a young man. He started working in London. I mean, obviously there are similarities with us both being actors, but I could really identify with his journey of self-acceptance and his looking back and understanding who he was at certain periods of his life, and the healing that has happened for him, and and learning how to go about the world without a chip on his shoulder. I think that's a fair way to put it. I think think that's a good way to sum up how he describes himself when he was in his younger years, and how I'm going to push away from you before you push me away, kind of thing. And I could definitely see a lot of that in myself. It's a self-protective thing that we do.
Self-preservation,
Yeah,
right? You don't want rejection or hurt or confrontation or judgment. So it's easier to just pull yourself out of the room and not have to respond to or deal with any of that, right?
exactly. So that really resonated with me. I thought, oh, there's definitely been points in my life where that was my MO. That's how I went about life. And there's something I think encouraging to read this story where man, late in his life, looking back, what stuck with him and how he reconciled it and how he moved past it. And so I found it very encouraging in that way. And then I just love all the stories about his first film role in Lion in Winter with Peter O'Toole and Katharine Hepburn, and just all these memorable roles. Of course, Hannibal Lecter, and what that was like for him at the time. And that's always fun to read as well, and to learn about what they were going through at that moment.
Oh, absolutely right. And like you say, you can plug into it. Fitness enthusiast as well. Does that go all the way back to childhood, or did that develop as time goes along? And are you jogging along the streets in New York and in between the hot dog vendors and all, and the pretzel
I'm not
trucks?
that enthusiastic. I am not a runner. I was telling a friend yesterday that I I do not want to run. I don't even want to run on a track. And now, because I'm 50, the excuse is that it's just bad for my knees. So, but I will get on the elliptical. I do like that.
He won't run in Central Park, and he's not going to run for office.
Right. Yeah, no, there's no running for me. When did that start for me? At this point, my relationship with fitness has changed over the years. I think when I was young, it's because I wanted to be strong. Maybe I didn't feel strong, and I wanted to be strong. I went through that awkward period where I started growing out more than I started growing up. And I think that that happens to everybody.
That wasn't
And
also at 12, was it? Because 12 is a key number for you.
I think I probably was like assuming everything happened at 12, but probably wasn't close to there. But
Yeah.
so I think my goals around it have changed over the years, and now it's more about longevity and making sure I can still keep playing these action roles for a few more years, and that I can still, it's New York. You got to be able to get around and walk up the stairs and down the stairs, and I want to be able to do that for a very long time. So I get myself to the gym about 4 or 5 times a week, even on the hard days, and I'm mostly good with the diet and exercise, but I allow myself some cheat days every now and then as well.
Yeah, yeah, and it seems, like you're fit and mind, body, and spirit, right? It all has to be aligned. Everything has to be aligned. That's a key.
That's the goal.
Hmm. Exactly. How do you do that? Being in this industry that's so demanding and ever changing and unpredictable, and all the different hours and just everything that comes with it. What do you do to keep it sort of in check, to not lose who Gary is, and to be able to breathe and unplug and plug back in and reboot? What are some of the things, like fitness, like reading, things that you like to do to keep stable and going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's an evolving thing, and I don't think I'm always good at it because, as you said, I don't have the typical set schedule every day, knowing where I'm going to be, knowing what I'm going to be doing. Uh, Sometimes not even next week or 3 months from now. But I try to have things like going to the gym. It's very grounding for me. It's therapy as much as anything else. Therapy, I will say, therapy is a part of my weekly routine, which is very helpful. I try to stay grounded with family and friends. It can be very hard for me sometimes to break away from New York or the routine and feeling like I need to always be plugged in. This city will do that to you. But When I went home to Louisiana and spent a week with my family over the holidays, and you know, I have all this sort of anxious energy when before I leave. I'm getting out of my routine, and I'm not gonna be able to do this, and I have to do this, and once I got to Louisiana, the pace is just so much slower, and I got to be around people who love me and whom I love, and that was very grounding. It was exactly what I needed. So I try to remind myself that I need to unplug every now and then. I am a big, just sort of, I love being home and, catching up on television shows that I don't always get to watch. If I'm busy making them, I don't always get to watch them, and catch up on my reading and just really try to center myself at least once or twice a day at the beginning or the end. I'm also a very early morning person. I love my quiet early mornings. So that's when I have time to have some coffee. I do a little writing. I just sort of sit and get ready for the day. If you came to visit me, it's like a funeral home around here because I usually don't have devices on. I usually don't have the TV on until I sit down to watch something.
I was going to
Um,
say,
yeah.
it's so quiet there, and you are in New York. And usually, when we have guests on who are in the city area, there's a siren or a dog barking or a doorbell ringing or a garbage truck going by. You're either on the 400th floor or you're down in a bunker or you have the best audio soundproofing known to man and womankind because you can hear a pin drop where you are. You would think maybe you're in a ranch house up in Louisiana somewhere on a river, quiet, and you just came in from canoeing. Uh, it's magically quiet where you are.
Yeah, I will say, right before you and I signed on today, there was an ambulance or a fire truck going down the street. So it's not always the case. We happen to be having a lucky moment, but I do love this room in my apartment. This is my office, and it is the most quiet. It's the most insulated. It has just one window that looks out at the back of the building. So this is the most quiet area in my apartment.
It's great for
But
voiceover work. Do you ever do any voiceover work, narration, audiobooks,
I have.
animated characters? Is voiceover part of your world too?
It is a part of my world. I've never done an animated character, though I think that'd be very fun. But yeah, voiceover, uh, some audiobook narration over the years. Yes, definitely have done some voice work, and this room helps with that.
What's
Absolutely.
what's great is too because you don't necessarily have a distinct accent that
Mm,
comes through, even though coming from the South, you have sort of a middle of the road sound, which is terrific because you can probably create a lot of different accents and dialects and things, but it's sort of like a Midwest sort of neutral sound. Is that from being up here in the Northeast all these years in the New York area, or you lost some of the Southern
I'll tell you.
sound, or can you easily, when amongst friends and family, you go right back in, right? Go right back
Yeah,
home.
yeah. I have to say that it was my acting teachers in Louisiana who I like to joke and say they beat it out of me, but they were very attuned to attuned to that. And so they would call me and call us on it back in school. And, because you want to be able to play, you don't want to be bound to your accent, or that was the lesson that we were given. And I don't drink anymore, but I used to say whenever I'd have a beer or call my mom, it would come right out. But, so
That
it
is
still
funny
comes out.
because my thing is I would always say if I had a glass of wine, the New York would come out for
Oh,
me.
oh,
So,
yeah, yeah.
the Lucille Ball book, the Frosty the Snowman melting, this whole thing. Are you sure you weren't the kid that grew up across the street from me? Because it sounds very, very similar.
Look at how much we have in common, right?
I was going to say, huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but so thank you. Yeah, the accent does come out. And when I came back from Louisiana after the holidays, it was absolutely there. There were a couple of things I had to do for work, and I heard myself, and I thought, "Oh, okay, yep, there you go. There's my brother. There's my mom."
Exactly right. What's really cool is making the best of a situation, taking lemons and turning them into lemonade. As I mentioned, being an avid reader of biographies, you were drawn to narratives rooted in real lives. And you, as you're saying, you've been fascinated by what motivates, what drives people, which is a lot of psychology. It's almost as if being in these kinds of industries, we have to be like psychologists because we're tapping into the human element and to humanity in such a deep way, and connecting with people. And you bring this natural born curiosity to every performance. And one of the cool things, as far as taking the lemon and turning it into lemonade, is during the pandemic, you deepened your focus on nonfiction storytelling and actually returned to school for a degree in film production and journalism. Tell us about that. That's cool.
I did. Yeah. So my school trajectory was I started school when I graduated high school back home in Louisiana, and I took every single theater and film class I could take, and then I was not interested in taking anything else. I wanted to pack up and move to New York and pursue my dreams. And I remember having a conversation with my dad, and he said, I said, I think I want to quit school. And he said, I think you're going to regret it, but it's your choice to make. And I wouldn't say that I regretted it. But it was something that I wanted to get back to. And the pandemic came and the world sort of shut down, but online classes were an option. And so I gave it some thought, and I knew that I didn't necessarily want to go back and study theater or acting because I felt I'd had enough lived experience at that point that I wanted to take this opportunity to dive deeper into something else that interests me. And it is my love of biography and nonfiction storytelling that led me to pursue the film and journalism degree. And I wanted to have the school I went to, which was the oldest documentary film program in the United States. I didn't know that when I applied and got in, but it's the historic City College here in New York, which is part of the CUNY system. And they have two film production tracks. One of them is documentary or nonfiction, and one is fiction. And so I chose the documentary track, and I was really drawn to that because I wanted to be able to pick up my camera and go to where the story was and tell it on my own. I wanted to learn how to do that. And it was a great program, and they did teach me that. And so, and the journalism as a minor just felt very complimentary to that degree. And I learned so much there. And I am so glad that I went back and finished that degree. And I took school much more seriously this go around, graduated with a 4.0. And I think at this point in my life, I decided that if I was going to devote the time to it, I was going to take it seriously. So it was great. And it's definitely a sideline storytelling venture of mine. And I'm working on developing a documentary project right now that I'm going to be working on for the next 6 months. That's what I was in this office working on today. And it's exciting. It's an exciting, different avenue that's still in the same world of what I do.
The journalistic aspect. Have you always been fascinated by journalism too? Did you follow, the TV reporters, anchors, radio people, newspaper people? Was that something that always fascinated you as well? The anchors, all of it?
Yeah. It's just talking to you about this, it really does sort of click for me that it's just all of a piece. It's the talking to people and understanding the story behind it, the story about what's going on. And you and I were talking about how this kind of your show, this kind of conversation, these long, in-depth conversations are what I love. When podcasts first started becoming a thing, and before the iPhone was even born, I was fascinated. That's what I'd walk around the city and listen to, these hour-long conversations with people on various subjects. So I think that really is when I started thinking of, being on that side of the equation. I just love learning about people. I guess that's it. And so occasionally I get to play them, and I like to fill my time otherwise with asking questions and learning.
Is there Gary Hilborn eyewitness news in the future?
I don't know about that. I don't know
Now
about that.
live, Gary Hilborn's in the studio, eyewitness news.
I I'm gonna say never because you never know what's
Or
coming
you
down
can
the road.
play one on TV, right?
Yeah, I could play one on TV. Yeah.
That is funny. That I want to let folks know too, and I'm sure they know, super fans of yours too as well. You've been in so many other things. You were also on another fabulous series. You got an opportunity to play on Blue Bloods. Uh, what was that like?
So I'll tell you the story around Blue Bloods is that I was going through a little bit of a tumultuous time in my life. This might be a conversation for another day, but on the other side of that, I had drifted away from my life as an actor a bit, and I was longing to get back to it. And so I had a friend who had been a stand-in on one of the Law and Order series, and she had a good experience doing it. So an opportunity came my way to be the stand-in for Donnie Wahlberg on the first, and I worked for the first 2 seasons of Blue Bloods. This was 2010 to 2012. And it was a wonderful learning experience. It got me on set every day, 16 hours a day, for 2 years, and it taught me so much about the technical side of acting on a single camera drama. Now, I had done some work before, but, as a guest star on a TV show or a co-star on a TV show, you drop in and you do your scenes and then you're out. This gave me an opportunity to work with the crew and really understand every department of a long-running television show, a hit television show for a big network. So working on that show, they put me in to a scene with Donnie that they had just sort of written on the fly. It was an added scene that wasn't on the schedule, so they hadn't cast the part. And so I got to work with Donnie. And I don't remember who stood in for us since I wasn't able to stand in for him, but it was a fun experience. And the script supervisor for Blue Bloods at that time, her name is Jody, was a script supervisor on my first episode of The Night Agent, and I hadn't seen her since 2012. So that was I walked over to her and I said, Jody, and she remembered me. It was such a great reunion because when you're working on those shows, it's 16 hours a day, and sometimes you're in an alleyway in Brooklyn or wherever shooting all night. Those crime shows are no joke. So it was really great to have a sweet little reunion with Jody and work with her on my first day on the set of The Night Agent.
So if you worked with Donnie Wahlberg on Blue Bloods,
Yeah.
if he were to get the group together again with New Kids on the Block, do you have a spot there too waiting for you?
To be in the show? Listen, those guys have it covered. They have that down.
Can you
But
dance? Can you sing?
I don't. Listen, nobody wants to hear me dance or sing. But hear me sing. You probably would hear me dance. That's not how you do it. But
Right, hear me dance.
grunts and groans. But
Yeah.
I will say that working with Donnie, I had the opportunity to go to a few of his shows when the New Kids on the Block were coming back together, and that was so much fun to go backstage and hang with those guys. Donnie was very generous to have us around for that as he was relaunching that part of his life again alongside Blue Blood. So that was a ton of fun. And I'll have to tell you that my sister-in-law and a lot of the girls that I went to school with around junior high were very jealous that they could not be my date for those shows.
They're like, Donnie, Mark, any Wahlberg, please, right?
Right.
And now he has his new series up in Boston.
Boston
which
Blue.
is really, another great one. A great parlay into that. You also Law and Order too. Another great opportunity, right? Where they did they film? I know Chelsea Piers. I actually got a chance to be. I got cast in one of the episodes as a like a court officer, and it was one of those last minute things where you get this call from a nondescript individual from Central Casting at 10 o'clock at night asking if you could be on set in Lower Manhattan at 6:30 in the morning. And out of the blue, probably seeing things online for me or whatever, and it was really cool to see the process and the filming and all. Tell us about your experience with that great series.
Yeah. So, being on Law and Order is a bit of a rite of passage for New York actors. And I auditioned and auditioned and auditioned for this show. Every incarnation of it, SVU, the original Law and Order, uh, Criminal Intent. The casting office brought me in a lot, and I love them. And just nothing was sticking. And the last I did an audition. It was the last audition I had before the world shut down for the pandemic, and it was with them. And I don't even know if that episode got filmed, honestly. And then after the pandemic, and as things were getting back together, we were all going back to work. They brought me in for an audition for Law and Order Organized Crime, which was the SVU spinoff that Christopher Maloney stars in. And it was great. It was another thing, just sort of like The Night Agent, where the part felt right. I have to tell you, he was an FBI agent. There's a theme in my career. And I got to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I never play doctors, but I play a lot of law enforcement. But yeah, so I got to.
So if I have an issue, I'm going to call Gary.
Listen, I don't pretend to know the ins and outs of it, but I can pretend like I do.
I can make a couple calls.
Yeah, exactly.
Have your people call my people, right?
Yeah, I know the experts to call. But so yeah, I finally got to work on the show, and I got to work with Christopher Maloney, who is just iconic in his role as Detective Stabler, and so that was definitely a thrill. I finally got to check Law and Order off of the actor bucket list and become a part of that franchise.
How cool is that, right? And like you say, in the New York area, that is, whether an extra or whatever the case may be, it is one of the coveted things to be a part of. It's almost part of the vernacular now if you're an actor in the area. Also, Daredevil, too, another one.
Yeah, that's another where the casting directors are really our champions as actors. They bring us in if they are fans of our work and they're cheerleaders for us. They bring us in until they find the part that fits, and I'm so grateful to them for that. Julie Schubert, who cast that show, she brought me in, and from the very beginning, from the very first episode, she kept bringing me in for parts, and I got close on a couple, and then I went to the other guy, and then I was cast on another one of the Netflix Marvel series, Luke Cage. Went in and worked on that show, and then they cut that entire storyline from the episode. So, which was fine. It actually worked out because that meant I was free to work within that Marvel universe again. I couldn't play two different characters because they're all interconnected. So when that got cut, I got brought in for Daredevil again in a great role that I got to play the first kill of the big villain in the Daredevil series, which is Bullseye. It's one of the big villains. There's Kingpin and there's Bullseye, and Kingpin is played by Vincent D'Onofrio, and I got to work with Vincent D'Onofrio, and it was a lot of fun. I had a very memorable death too. I got killed by a baseball.
You did, huh?
Yeah, death by baseball.
Instead of knocking it out of the park, you got knocked out of the park.
I
Wow.
did. I did.
Killed by a baseball. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. The Sinner is another one too.
Oh yeah, that was tons of fun. So the story with that is I was on the first season of The Sinner with Jessica Biel, and I auditioned for this show. We didn't know anything about it. There had not been any previous seasons, and it was very dark. The script that they gave us, the scene, my character was very dark and had this long monologue that I had to audition with. And you couldn't really, if I remember correctly, you couldn't really tell what was going on with this guy, but he seemed to be on something or impaired in some way. So you just sort of have to wing it like you do in auditions. You're like, okay, I'm going to make a choice. I'm going to go with it. And then I booked it. And Still didn't know anything really about this show. It was such a mystery. There's a central mystery to this show. So I get the scenes. I know when I'm going to work, and I start watching the show when it airs, and I'm hooked. I'm sucked in. Like, I am on the edge of my seat with this show. And there's this big mystery. I'm not going to give it away. It's been out for several years, but just in case, in this age of streaming, if anybody hasn't watched it, there's a big mystery that she's trying to solve, Jessica Biel's character, about her own memory in the story. And so as we're watching it, you start getting more and more clues. And I turned to my friend at the time and I said, as we're watching this together, I said, I think that I'm a part of the thing that happened to her. And that was
Wow.
exciting. Yeah. I went,
Yeah.
oh, wow. Like, I knew what I knew about the episode that I was going to shoot, and things were starting to converge toward the end. And I thought, oh, and so then I got to go film it. And that was a great experience. It was, if I'm not mistaken, it was one of the first things Jessica Biel produced, and it was a huge success. It was just so well done. She was a dream to work with, and she's now gone on to produce several hit series, and she's really a powerhouse in that world now. So
Another great one on NBC. You were recurring on the Blacklist.
yeah, that was fun. That was fun. It's, that was at the height of the popularity of the show.
Mhm.
I played a SWAT commander and Commander Pharaoh. And so, I would come in when there was a big, something big happening. We were taking a building, and, I'd mix it up with the main characters and be the SWAT commander on the site. So that was fun. Yeah. They brought me in for a couple of episodes, and great team of people. I had a lot of fun working on that.
Great shows. I mean, great projects and opportunities that have come your way and continue to come
Yeah.
your way. You're marking 25 years in New York. Congratulations
Thank you.
on that. Quantico was another one that people fell in love with that you had an opportunity to be a part of.
Yeah. Yeah. That was great. That was an ABC show that was very popular, and starred Priyanka Chopra, who's now Priyanka Chopra Jonas, and very popular show. I did, for a show that was called Quantico and was about CIA agents, I didn't play one, which is saying something given my track
I
record.
was going to
But
say,
I did not. I played a bad guy, and I worked with the incomparable Donna Murphy, who is a legend of the Broadway stage, and she's currently playing Mrs. Astor on HBO's The Gilded Age. And she and I had a big scene in the middle of Central Park, which felt really cool. As a kid who wanted to be an actor and live in New York, to be shooting a scene in front of the Bethesda Fountain in Central Park, with a ton of background artists and stunts and cameras everywhere, and the entire cast on set. That was a ton of fun. So yeah, I got to work with, it was with Donna, and she was a dream, and that was a really fun show. I died in that one too. It's funny. My nephew once, he asked me, he said, "Are you going to die in this one?" I got killed a lot.
I was going to say, it leads me to ask, do you like comedies? Sitcoms, if those came your way as well?
I love comedies. Please,
Yeah.
someone put me in a comedy.
What about a sitcom, right?
Yeah, I would love to make people laugh. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of comedies. I would love that.
Is there a role out there that you haven't played yet that you would love to play? Maybe comedy and others that are still out there, like, gee, I would love to tackle that.
Yeah, that's a really great question. There are theater roles that I would like to go back to. I think once you get a little life experience, and if they stay with you and you start thinking about, if you just can't shake them, and Eddie Carbone in A View from the Bridge is that role that I want another crack at. So on stage, it's Eddie in A View from the Bridge. And, I think I would sell myself short if I said exactly what I want in the TV and film world, especially television, because it's changing, and there's always new and inventive things that are coming out. And I can't even dream of what might possibly be ahead for me, but I will say that the dream for me as an actor is to be a part of an ensemble show like I'm a big fan of The West Wing and Mad Men, an ensemble show that just really knocks it out of the park every episode, and it's just people at the top of their game. If I can get if I can be a regular on one of those shows down the road, that would absolutely be a dream come true. And that goes back to my theater days, because then you have a company of actors that you work with all the time, and you show up and you see not just the actors but the crew and your own set. Like, it's that world that I love.
Mm.
So that's a dream role, just like a really great, well written, well produced, well acted ensemble drama. That's the dream.
That sounds really, really cool. And of course, talking about the upcoming season of The Night Agent, head of the Secret Service, we're talking to here, Gary. Really excited about that. And what are people saying? There's a lot of buzz around that series, The Night Agent on Netflix, right?
Yeah, anticipation seems to be pretty high. I saw that, when the new season drop date was announced, February 19th, that the show shot up into the top 10 again worldwide for Netflix. So people were obviously still interested and looking to catch up on where we left off with the characters. We left off with Peter Sutherland, the main character of the show. And, the buzz is great. And I will say that I came to this show as a fan. And so I'm excited to see how it all comes together. Now, I do have the advantage of having read the scripts. So I know the story we're telling, and it's a good one. It's a good one. You're not going to be disappointed. And when I went to the screening or premiere last week at the Netflix theater in Los Angeles, we got to see the first episode on the big screen. And let me tell you, no expense has been spared. It is edge of your seat thriller. It's not to be missed. And I think that once you buckle in for the first episode, you're just going to want to binge it all, because it doesn't let up. It doesn't let up. So it's exciting. It's an exciting season. I think it's going to be our best one yet.
It really is. Look for him on Netflix in The Night Agent, folks. We're talking to Gary Hilborn here on the show, coming to us from New York, prolific award-winning television, film, and stage actor and producer, and so much more. Gary, this was fantastic, truly. And what are some of those blessings and joys in your life that keep you doing what you do and do so well, my friend?
Just just being able to have a career that was a lifelong dream. I heard someone say that the two people you have to make proud are your 8-year-old self and your 80-year-old self. And I definitely think the 8-year-old Gary is thinking life is pretty cool. So I try to stay in touch with that I'm getting to live the dreams that I had as a young kid in Louisiana. And I didn't really know the path that I was going to be able to take to get here, but here I am. And, I hope that I make decisions every day that my 80-year-old self can look back on with some sense of pride and appreciation. So that's what sort of keeps me grounded. And then, of course, my family, who are friends, and my friends who are family, I make time for them.
That's the best. That's numero uno all the time, my friend. It really is. Really getting a chance to share a little bit about you with our viewing audience watching around the world. And we thank so much for the time and your generosity of time, Gary. Congratulations on all these cool things you've been a part of in the world of entertainment and the arts, and continued blessing and success your way. And I tell all the guests, we like to keep the porch light on for them. So you are welcome back anytime. Spread the word about the Jim Masters Show series. Love to have you back, and truly hope you enjoyed the time with me as much as I have with you, Gary.
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, Jim. I loved our conversation, and I really appreciate it. So this has been a pleasure.
The pleasure is all mine. And you're on all the socials, right? People can find you out there at
Gary Hilborn everywhere.
That's it. IMDb and everywhere else. A real pleasure, my friend. Congratulations. We'll be looking for you on Netflix and everywhere else. And I hope we get a chance to chat more. That would be a real pleasure. You be well, okay? And thanks for stopping by the show. It was a lot of fun.
You too. Thanks so much, Jim. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Gary Hilborn joining us here from New York by way originally of Louisiana. And again, in the new season of this really, really hot series, it is The Night Agent on Netflix. Look for that. And again, he's a terrific guy and a wonderful actor. And if you've seen him, you know what I'm talking about. He plays all kinds of different roles, though there is a theme, isn't there? Here he is the head of the Secret Service in this incredible series, which came out around 2023. And again, new season on Netflix. Everybody buzzing about it. And I'm sure if you haven't checked it out, you'll check it out now. Hey, gang, thanks for stopping by the Jim Masters Show. It's always a pleasure to have you here on the show. We love when you're watching. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Jim Masters TV. And gang, drop a comment below if you enjoyed this. And maybe there's some things you've seen Gary in that you want to share, or just say hi. Drop a comment in the comment section. We love when you do that. Don't forget to love one another, take care of one another, and don't forget to do the very same for yourself. It's important to do that. And thanks for being with us. Don't go anywhere, because another great episode is coming up next right here on the Jim Masters Show. We really appreciate you being here, coming to you from New York. Great celebrity friends and special guests on our celebrity talk show series, the Jim Masters Show. Thanks for being with us, everybody. We love having you here. It's always a pleasure. Spread the word about our show. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode coming up on the Jim Masters Show. Be well, everybody, and cheers.